Hello. I guess things are good and live now. Good to go. Good to go. So, definitely figured I'd pop things up, get things handled in regards to getting things completely set up. And find out what's going on here. As always, there's always a chance for scuff. It's the way it always works, don't it? Okay. Let's see here. All right. Well, see if we can get things rolling for the day. And of course, I decided I was actually going to be out having my birthday dinner and everything tonight. And of course, while I'm eating a Chicago deep dish pizza, what ends up happening? Oh, let's just see what we got going on here. Yeah, apparently the president decided today that he was going to talk at about just a few with regards to this in about a few minutes, and what he actually did while I was eating pizza, I was not exactly impressed. But, it is what it is. A lot of people are screaming, a lot of people are upset, and it's kind of how the politics go, and sometimes you got to suck it up and just deal with it because Congress, well, they have the ability to declare war, but the problem being a lot of people screaming on Twitter right now have to deal with the fact that they don't understand that he can do things within a 2 month window. And whatever he does, if he doesn't have the backing of Congress, he's got to back out on it. And the other thing that we've got to think about is everybody's going to have their nerves tied up in a nice, lovely bundle over all of this. And we can hope everything goes good and straight. But I don't exactly know what the heck he's going to say. Are we going to go into a nice, lovely problem? Is everything going to get screwed up? Of course, these guys are going to be yapping for a little bit because there's at least a few more minutes until we get started with that kind of stuff. But
What does our largely American audience need to know
but of
about
course, I can keep these
process?
guys muted for a moment until
Firstly, what
the important people start talking. Because of course, they're going to be yapping and speculating with regards to what's going to happen, what's going to get talked about. Who knows? Maybe the next thing we end up seeing, it's going to be nothing but a total nothing burger, like the last time the president decided to open his mouth and start talking. Because, yeah, the last time he decided to start talking about stuff, and the press secretary was talking about stuff, it was a complete nothing burger. There was nothing left. It's like, okay, thanks for wasting everybody's hour. That was awesome. I could have been playing my game. Like seriously. Uh, so, of course, there are other things going on this weekend that I've been kind of keeping an eye on. Yeah, Off Kai is going on, and a lot of people have their own opinions about it, but apparently this year it's a little bit worse for the wear because a lot of people are having problems with con crud because everybody and their dog has decided, hey, I'm not going to shower for a week and then I'm going to go to a convention where there's a ton of people. Great. The unwashed masses. The only thing I can be grateful for on that one is if you're a VTuber and you're doing a meet and greet panel, at least you don't have to be out there smelling the unwashed masses. The problem, however, is going to be a whole lot of people all bunched up in one spot. And if a whole bunch of people haven't done anything, it's going to smell like 1885. Because, yeah, that's how that works. because, you know, when we didn't have actual plumbing and a whole bunch of that stuff. So it's always bad when you got to wait to actually see what the heck is going on. I've got a couple of other things I wanted to talk about tonight because it's just a little bit crazy. I mean, had decent dinner with my dad. Yeah, the old boomer, he still hasn't kicked it. So he's still rolling. And we ended up sitting there talking about different things, past times, other things that happened in the past, and other craziness. Ugh. Kind of fun to reminisce sometimes when things were a lot worse off. Good times and the bad. Traveling the world. Seeing crazy stuff. So, of course. Well, we can definitely see what the heck they're talking about because this is just interesting.
Coup to put the Shah into power. They put the Shah in power and they've aimed everything at the West. They've been anti-Western the entire time. And so that's
Oh, of
that's
course,
what
they're
that
talking about the
is.
Shah of Iran.
Regime
Oh yeah,
about.
that goes back to
So
Carter
right
era
now, all the
because
things that are underlying
when there
that
was the
regime, all the
overthrow and the
things
Ayatollah
is
took
now
over
taken.
and all
They-
that
they've
craziness.
always pointed
I
and
mean,
said,
if you look at the
"We
old
might be
photos
the
of
club.
1970s Iran,
The might be
the Persians
killing
actually
because
looked
we have
pretty nicely like
That's what they
any
have.
other normal Western civilization. And that was the crazy bit. I mean, they weren't a majority Muslim country at that time. So then things switched over after the Ayatollahs took over. And then they instituted the Sharia law, and that's the way that went. So, of course, you could ask Grok, you could ask other AIs, you could go searching and do your own research, but
I will
you
say
can't get
that
real
now,
numbers of,
10 o'clock
you know,
Eastern
who
Time,
is
we
actually a
anticipate
practicing
the
Muslim
president
over in that
will
country
step up to this
because it's
and
illegal
voice
to not be Muslim. Let's face facts on that one. It's Sharia law. If you're not a Muslim in Iran,
but I'm gonna keep you on the line
publicly
here now,
at the very
until we
least,
see President Trump
then
walk
you
out.
face a whole
Let's
bunch
ask one more
of a
time,
world of hurt.
What exactly are
And
you
keep
going
it
to
clean
be
there.
looking to hear from the president?
So,
This is going to be the first time we've heard him on camera.
of course, they got to set up the podium, make everything set up like this. With regards to how things go, is this going to be a green screen yet? I mean, come on. How fake is it got to be? Oh, great. Here he comes.
It looks like President Trump, Vice President Vance, and others.
See what he has to
Secretary
say.
Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio here. Let's listen to the president after the strikes on Iran.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise.
Hey man, somewhere in one of those bunkers was over 500 PS2s, all daisy chained.
And a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs.
Yeah,
That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people.
I got a buddy
and
who's over
hundreds
there.
of
Yeah,
thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world.
doesn't have
have
a leg.
died as a direct result of their
IED.
hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team.
Of course, he's
like
always got to
perhaps
call him
no
Bibi.
team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American
Now that's a good
patriots who flew
question.
those
The wonderful job
magnificent
they've done.
machines tonight.
Depends on whether or
And all
not
of the
they
United
let
States
certain things
military on an
through.
operation the likes of
It's
which the world
it's
has not
conspiracy
seen in many,
tinfoil
many
hat time
decades.
on that one if they let things
Hopefully, we will
through.
no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many
Yeah,
targets
over the
left.
last week we've been seeing a lot of
Tonight's
sabers
was the
rattling.
most difficult of them all, by far.
It's a bit
And
nuts.
perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight. Not even close. There has never been a
Well,
military
considering he
that
head
could do
faked
what
everybody with
took
a
place
2-week
just a little
time
while
frame.
ago. Tomorrow,
I mean, that's a
General
little
Kane,
nuts.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, and I was hoping he'd actually say something a little more.
Right, there you have it. President Trump, in very brief remarks there, saying that Iran's nuclear...
Of course, it comes into the question, where do we go from here? So, this actually comes down to what he actually did is going to cause all holy hell to happen on Monday with Congress. Because of course, there's going to be people that are going to be up at podiums. They're going to be screaming both ways. I mean, the saber rattling never stopped all the way through this week. And it's just going to pick up and even further harder. So we're going to get to see that and definitely see a bunch of other things going on. There's going to be reactions from all sorts of other countries with regards to this. So, of course, I live in an area of the United States that is considered what you would say a first strike location. At least I'm thankful for that, because if it pops off, yeah, I won't be here at all. At least, hopefully, I won't feel it. At least you can be thankful for that if you actually live in a city, because that's primary target land. But of course, definitely wanting to look over a few other things today, because the tweet that actually went out before this was with regards to Thomas Massie saying this is not constitutional. So there's a problem with that statement, Representative Massie, because Article 2, Section 2 grants the president the power of the commander-in-chief. Now, to keep that good and straight, even for this guy asked for the Grok response, and right here, it just kind of breaks it all down. You know, requires congressional notification within 48 hours. So he did it today. He already is pretty well putting through the notifications. So on Monday, when they come back in, they're going to start talking. So it comes down to 60 days without approval for engagements. So he can continue to do a whole bunch of stuff for the next 2 months. This could escalate. This could get worse. Things could go off the chain. And everything's going to get reviewed. Everything's going to go back and forth. But Congress is the check. Because, of course, the United States is supposed to be a world of checks and balances. And that's the check. is Congress will come forward and actually be able to deem whether or not he needs to absolutely stop, or if there is an actual declaration of war. Which would suck. This would be another war having to deal with in my lifetime, but I've lived in peacetime for maybe 4 years of my entire life. So yeah. Yep, right here. One person, yeah, Otto Penn's 4 years was constitutional. There was nothing said. USAID was constitutional. Biden's border was constitutional. Nothing about taxpayer money being laundered through NGOs. Well, Ukraine funding, January 6th didn't bother you. And weaponization of government against conservatives. But every move is called out by you. Yep. That's one of those things. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum, there's always going to be people who side with one side or the other and not actually call out the bad that goes on. So, I mean, politically where I stand, I am middle. The old middle is the best way to say it. The Overton window actually kind of shifted and I got pushed over a line. So originally, I mean, if we roll back time to about 2018, I was left of center. I mean, I had views that had to deal with, you know, there's choices, there are different things. But of course, when the window shifted, all of a sudden, anybody who apparently isn't a Hassan chatter is apparently right wing these days. I mean, if you have the opinion that men deserve to be loved during and cared for during men's mental health awareness, then there's a problem. If you think men deserve to be loved, I've been in a marriage for over 20 years. Saying I don't deserve that, well, that's where you're at, I guess. So, now the question here, this person, Montana Libertarian, I actually definitely say poses a good question. Did he do this for America, or was he siding with Israel over things? We could definitely say from the podium today, he is putting it forward that he is siding with America and deeming it as a threat. Now, honestly, Iran's been trying to enrich the uranium, and having paid attention to that for over the last 10 plus years, I mean, even going back to the time where they figured out that Iran was pulling in PS2s to actually network them to create the whole thing. There's an entire thing about cyber warfare for the whole thing to make sure that their projects weren't working, and, you know, behind the scenes stuff of what they were seeing on the inside. For the investigations for nuclear material, fissile material, Iran originally, they kept saying that it was for nuclear energy, that they were going to make a nuclear power plant. And for that, your fissile material only needs to be like 20 or 30% enriched. You know, it doesn't have to be really high on the scale so that you can use it to generate power. However, if you're going for nuclear weapons enrichment, it needs to breach like 70%, 80% viability. And that was what was getting discovered, that they were pushing for that level of enrichment, which of course set off everybody's alarm bells and has led to where we are today. So I honestly don't know what to think where things are going to go forward from here. But we'll definitely see in the coming days. Yeah. Yeah. Conservative alternative. Congress must vote on it. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they start debating and talking about that on Monday. But everybody else is going to armchair quarterback this and try to actually shove it. But here's a good one from Bill Herring here. He's got a good point. Carter did his moves back in the 70s with Iran. So did Reagan. So did Bush. So did Clinton. So did Bush too. Obama. So did Biden. Every single president has actually made unilateral military moves. And at this point, there's no point in actually screaming about it now, because this is going to happen repeatedly over and over. It's always going to go. So, of course, AK here has to actually show all of the military bases that are all around Iran. Yes, there's plenty of targeted spots. If this does go to war, next thing you know, we've got all of these places all around Iran that could become strike locations. I mean, this could explode out of control. So we have no idea where things are going to move onward from here. We can definitely hope things get better, but we can never tell. Yeah. Of course, everybody's got to laugh about, go pass a bill. Pass a big, beautiful bill or something. Yeah. Let's not get into omnibus bills. Those get kind of stupid. Everybody knows nobody can read it. And the funniest thing that I admit about the new omnibus bills, now that we have AI, the most hilarious thing, they don't get a digital copy of the bill. Everybody in Congress, those big omnibus bills, think Patriot Act, think all of that stuff, 800 plus pages. Each one of them gets a paper copy, and they're expected to read it in a matter of 2 to 3 hours. There's no way you're reading that. Nobody is going to be reading that. It's fine print. It's 12-point font, single spaced, and over 800 pages. Would you be able to read Stephen King's The Stand in 2 hours, 3 hours? I couldn't. It took me a week, and that was without taking a break. I'd sleep, I'd get up, I'd read it. I mean, it was a really good book, but it took 5 days. Now, getting that paper copy, the one thing is you got to question, how long is it going to take to be able to feed it into a scanner? And if all of a sudden somebody in Congress hasn't passed some sort of law or bill or whatever, that doesn't allow you to scan it in. Because if you were able to scan it in, you could actually get it in a digital format. And then from there, you'd be able to use AI to go, hey, summarize this big honking piece of crap. Let me see the bullet points. And then they'd be able to figure it out. But no, of course, everything's got to be a little crazy. Because they want things to get through. They want things to sneak under the rug. Because later on, after something passes through, then all of a sudden they realize where the roaches were hiding under the carpet. And these aren't the good roaches, like the Roach Ranch. These are the bad roaches. Yep. Of course, since what I'm doing right here, definitely want to go over one other thing with everybody. Legal Mindset. He decided he was going to come out with the fast facts of what Ethan Klein's doing. And definitely want to check this out.
Ethan Klein has sprung a copyright trap against some reaction channels which reacted to his content nuke of Hassan Piker. But will it work? We're going to get into it today. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney living in Asia. And this is the Legal Mindset, where we teach you to be your own judge. So let's get right into it.
Now, I will definitely admit, look up Legal Mindset. I will be dropping a link into the chat when we get towards the end. But give him a like, a subscribe. If you got any questions or want to jump in on things, give him a comment. You know, he's actually a decent guy. Just quick overview about this dude. He is a lawyer who is currently out in Southeast Asia. He is mainly in Thailand, but he is actually bebopping around in the different countries, covering all sorts of different cases. He's primarily one of the guys who is constantly going to Korea to actually cover the legal proceedings for nuisance streamers that are going on out there. So definitely look him up if you need to. I'll drop a link for this video here in the comments.
This is a really fascinating issue because it really brings up issue of copyright at large and how it's enforced on the internet on all platforms. This can have massive ramifications across
True.
really every single major streaming platform, whether YouTube, Twitch, etc. All of them have so many reaction channels, and this is a potential to affect really all of them, despite the fact it seems like it's targeted at just 3 people. So what's going on? Well, Ethan Klein recorded a content nuke of Hassan Piker in an ongoing feud between the two. Now, today we're not going to get into, the personal dynamics and all the subjective stuff of Ethan versus Hassan, etc. We're going to focus on the objective law and the bigger, broader issues at stake here. So with that content nuke, many people who did not like Ethan Klein went and reacted to his video. And some people did add very substantial, very lengthy commentary to that, but others were, it appears, simply restreaming that content in order to prevent the views from coming to Ethan Klein. So in response to that, it turns out that Ethan Klein actually registered his copyright of that content nuke and is now suing 3 creators. And this is a really, really big deal because these reaction channels, while they're small in comparison, right? While they're small in comparison to Ethan and other very large channels, it can set a precedent which can echo across other.
Now, honestly, the truth is on this, yes, I actually delved in a little bit just to try to familiarize myself with it. Ethan had a plan. He knew what was going on. He decided that he was going to create his content in his video ahead of schedule. He was going to build it all. He was going to spend over a week on his content doing it all. And then when he had all of that video ready to go for what he was going to talk about, he went forward to the Library of Congress quietly, put in his copyright notice, got the approval, paid for all of that stuff, was able to actually get that rubber stamp, bam, all of a sudden it's copyrighted material. So, since he knew that was going on, he then put it out there for its premiere. That way it went out for a launch, and this is where it kind of comes in. He knew this was going to happen. And everybody can have their own opinion on some of this.
Creators and all platforms, really. And what's at stake is the definition of what is transformative, what you can do to react to a video. Now, there have been several cases which have gone different ways. There have been cases where people have just re-uploaded videos and that hasn't worked, but there also are different cases where people have taken a video and clipped it and added a different title, a different thumbnail, and courts have said, hey, that's okay. And really, what are they looking at? What are they looking at is it a substitute? Are you substituting one for the other? And that's the real core of the question here today. Are these reaction channels, are these people reacting to Ethan, are these substitutes for Ethan's content? And beyond that, it appears that there may even be malice on the part of many of these parties who literally intended it to be a substitute to Ethan's content, to his.
And this is where it comes down into my thoughts on this. Going, honestly, in my opinion, and I feel very strongly about this, if you are going to be disingenuous, just straight up uploading whatever somebody else's work is, and you're not going to talk about it, you're not going to pause, you're not going to give your opinion, and I mean, even if you agree or disagree, you're not transforming the content. And that just pisses me off. It's like, okay, I saw a clip earlier from someone else. It was, I think Asmongold was doing his thing, and it was a clip where it showed Denims had actually decided to get up midstream while the content is still playing. She's not talking at all during the entire thing. She gets up, she leaves, she's gone for like 10-15 minutes, and then she comes back, sits down, still nothing. You haven't transformed anything. Anything. it's like you're totally trying to rip it off, and then all of a sudden the clip actually cut it short towards the end of her stream, where she actually said, thanking her viewers for being there and intentionally not giving Ethan the views for his copyrighted content. Now here's where I'll say there's the problem. Because you have done that, you have then subverted his revenue generation. You have basically cut him off from generating his revenue from the content that he created, which was a copyrighted work, and which by copyright law, he is entitled to the revenue for it. That's the trap.
Is copyright protected content, and that is a top issue. Now, Ethan did say one thing which I need to clear up because there needs to be some baseline about what copyright is and what's going on with copyright. So let's listen to Ethan here talking about him registering that copyright, and I'll explain things as we go.
One thing about copyright you should know is that you got to register it before you publish to be eligible for statutory damages and attorney's fees, which is the main biting force of a copyright infringement lawsuit. Well, I'm happy to tell you guys now, I, Ethan Klein, have registered Hasan Piker Content Nuke with the United States Library of Congress,
which he's well in his rights to do.
One thing about copyright.
So that's a really interesting fact. So one thing to clear up is you do have copyright protection as soon as you create a work. So if you create a piece of art, a book, etc., you have copyright protection. However, what Ethan is talking about is a prerequisite to suing. So even if you have already created something, you have protections that exist automatically as a requirement to sue, and especially to get those damages. Yes, you're going to need to go through the registration process. So that's what he's speaking about here.
Get ahead of the ball.
Damages. So while many people say that's not right, copyright's automatic. Well, no, what he's
no,
saying
not
is
necessarily.
Kind of with the fact that
it's where what you end up doing on Twitch and a few other places when you're doing your content, there is kind of a baseline. It's kind of the difference between a verbal agreement and on paper. It's where there's a fuzzy, shady gray zone when it comes to when you're doing your content on Twitch, Kick, whatever, and you have a semblance of protection because you didn't actually file a prior copyright to actually get that built. So it's shaky ground if you were to actually try to do a court case in and after the fact. If somebody was, basically stripping your entire VOD and re-uploading it and trying to claim it as their own. That is what that is. It'd be very hard. It's harder to prove in a court that somebody, because you didn't previously file the paperwork, is where Andrew, I think, might be going with this. But definitely see if I'm right.
No, you do have copyright as soon as you create something. And mind you, there are exceptions to that. For example, live broadcasts. Live broadcasts are an exception to the copyright rule for registration. So while there are holes in that and there are some exceptions, Ethan is generally right here. And what he did was he registered this copyright beforehand in order to later enforce that because he knew people were going to react to that. Now, some people have said this is a trap. They call him the Admiral Akbar. It's a trap. But really, the law doesn't care whether or not you set it up that way because, frankly, in the eyes of the law, you're just planning to enforce your copyright. If you knew somebody was going to steal something from you and you took a measure to protect yourself, that's not a trap. That's like calling a house alarm a trap against burglars because it calls the police automatically. That's not really what happens here, and that's not really a defense. And frankly, I think one of the biggest issues here is that all of these channels were making it very, very clear that you should watch them instead of Ethan. Now, the one thing to be really...
Yep. And this is going to probably go straight into what I actually just said with regards to the revenue generation and trying to strip Ethan of being able to make revenue from his work.
Really concerned about, and the problem I see coming out of this, if Ethan does prevail, is the chilling effect. That is the other channels that are going to be scared to do reaction content because of this. And beyond that, platforms platforms may aggressively enforce against reaction channels. So there could be a massive movement, a massive wipe of reaction channels at large. And this could be really
Yep.
dangerous because it has the potential of a slippery slope of going too far. At what point
Yep.
is it transformative? Now, his argument is, well, if you get up out of your chair for, half of the stream or a significant portion of the stream, that's not transformative. Well, how much do you have to comment on? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 50%? Is it 75%?
Do you have to pause every 15 seconds and actually start making comments? That's a good question.
That's really a hard thing to judge. And a judge in these cases is doing it case by case, point by point. Now, I think Ethan does have a chance to prevail against these three creators, particularly because of the egregious things they said. Now, we're not going to get into this on the fast facts version. This is, of course, the quick and dirty version of my analysis. But if you watch my live on this, we're going to watch the entire video, the entire 20 minutes, which goes into what these creators did and how they went through their analysis. But safe to say that most of them did not do deep, lengthy, in-depth analysis. They mostly just sat there, watched, made a couple noises, grunts. Some of them were appearing to take bong hits during this, or smoking something during it. While that might, in the eyes of some, be quote unquote transforming it in a way, whether a judge thinks that's changing it to something different that is not a substitute.
I have an opinion with regards to the transformation thing. Okay, there are some people who would take the argument that placing an avatar on, using your overlay as a VTuber and that kind of thing, and just being there and playing the whole thing would be transformative. I disagree with that because that's in the same idea as just having the camera up and then somebody walks away. And yeah, that's not transformative enough for me. So my personal opinion is if you're going to make it transformative enough, you need to sit down, you need to actually talk about the things, you need to interact with your chat, you need to, have a discussion. I mean, because that's the transformative quality as far as I'm concerned, because this is where it is. You're watching things together, you're talking about it, you're reacting to it, and that's where I prefer live streaming medium for it, because then you can have your chat throw an opinion at you and you can actually discuss what's going on.
Is the real question. And I think here Ethan has a very, very, very strong case to say, yeah, that's not a major transformation. You're not adding anything educational, entertaining, etc. It's really just you sitting there and trying to filter off his views. But what do you guys think in this? Once again, do you think this is something that might go Ethan's way? Do you think it's something that might go the way of the reaction channels? And do you guys enjoy reaction channels? Because I know some people think that they're content leeches. Some people think that the reaction channels are useless. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.
Yep. Honestly, as a reactor, I am of the opinion that, yeah, things can be entirely different with regards to that. I am on the fence with regards to things. I can understand the slippery slope that is going on, and it's where people are afraid that the slippery slope of this, let's get into this. The slippery slope is that if Ethan actually does this, then it's not just going to content nuke the people that he wants to content nuke. He's going to nuke wide swaths of live streamers. He's going to basically nuke a lot of the just chatting channels. Let's get this straight. He's going to nuke a lot of people who are just talking about things. I mean, reaction videos, everything like that. It's just going to eliminate large swaths of, say, YouTube live streaming. People are going to be required to walk away from it and figure out different ways of doing content. And, I would prefer to be able to actually continue to react. I mean, seriously, that would be the nice thing, because I'm still reacting to it, providing my opinion. And in live streaming, this way, all of a sudden, I can talk to chat and be able to actually say, hey, let's talk it out. You know, what exactly is your opinion? I have my opinion, but of course you have your opinion. And then maybe we can actually have a discussion with regards to it, because that is even more transformative than anything. But the courts are a fickle thing. I have my own court experience with regards to things, and some true things about court. The court does not actually understand sarcasm one iota. They don't. Never will. Because if you say something even in a sarcastic tone or just kidding or anything like that, no, the courts will take you completely dead serious. So if you ended up making some sort of alleged threat or some other off-color joke or something else, yeah, the court's going to take you at your word. So you could get owned quickly. So, yeah. Of course, definitely wanted to move forward to my next one and definitely see if anybody's willing to talk to me about that one. But and of course, here, get you that link. One moment here. Definitely pop out some links here of what we've been dealing with today. That first one there was the link to the Trump thing, and here would be Legal Mindset. Give him a like, comment, subscribe. Definitely look him up. Definitely check him out. Look at his other stuff. I first discovered him back when it was the whole Johnny Depp trial. I mean, he was on like every day for hours. And it was back during the time when everybody was working from home. I was working my day job from home and just sitting there with my headset on and just talking with coworkers, that kind of stuff, for most of the day with one headphone on an ear, listening to the entire trial, everything that was going on, and about 6 law tubers all talking about stuff. But there was something else that's going on in the VTuber scene that I definitely wanted to check out, and definitely have to say, I'm probably going to have to do something quick. I'm going to move myself over here because I'm going to be reacting to Rev. I actually have had conversations with his wife and have talked to them decently. They're decent people. They're nice people. Whatever you have to say about them, yeah, it is what it is. You can have your own opinions of different people, but that is how it goes. Not everybody can like everybody, but it does go with what it goes.
Hey, what's up, guys? Riff here. So today we got some big updates regarding drama involving the VTuber agency Niji Sanji. Now let's cut right to the business here. So recently, Twisty Amanozaku, one of their English talents, has been facing a lot of negative attention. She is someone who's had a very bumpy ride with the company ever since joining just over a year ago. She's only streamed once in the past 6 months, and recently she streamed on her Past Life account, which, for those who don't know the VTuber terminology, that just means the account she used before she joined the agency.
Now, this is where all of a sudden I have to ask whether or not Rev is going to actually bring up one of the major ex detractors on the internet, and who this is their Oshi completely. And I found that really wild.
And typically when someone does that while still working with the agency, it's saying there's some very bad things going on. And I think coincidentally, right around that time, there was
Ouch.
a YouTube video uploaded that you can see has since been removed for violating YouTube's TOS. But this was a leaked Discord call between Twisty and two of her, I would assume,
Yeah.
former friends, because one of the two leaked the call. And in this, she said a lot of controversial and edgy things that I covered in a previous video. You can check those out there if you want to. But to break it down, as she states in her apology, she said some disparaging things about some races, men, trans people, and
Yeah, Twisty kind of popped off pretty hard. I actually did catch a clip of that leaked call. That was crazy.
as well as her fans calling them mentally disabled and for not giving her enough support on her streams. It was a mess. Obviously, it looked pretty bad, and her apology didn't go well on Twitter. But of course, this is Twitter, and given the nature of the things she said,
Yep.
these edgy comments, people were going to dog.
Ain't nothing but edgy comments
But
on
about a day
X.
later, she would make a subsequent stream explaining further what's going on with this situation, trying to apologize again. But importantly, during this, she spent some time talking about the mistreatment she has received at the company since joining. And this is something she briefly mentioned in the leak call as well. But in this, she talked about some allegations she has made
Well,
against one of the English
at least give her a
talents,
soapbox.
Aster Arcadia, who she claims
But she went
is a
on for
sex
32
pest and a
minutes?
known one
Oof.
in the company who has made multiple women feel uncomfortable due to his unwanted advances. Now, this is something we'll talk about a little bit later, but let's just pause and reflect on what's ultimately going to get her terminated, and that's the edgy and controversial comments. And people had really three reactions to that after this final statement on it. Basically, they either said, "Holy based, I just found a new VTuber to watch," or they said, "Oh my god, she's literally Hitler Epstein 2.0. Or the third result, which is where I stand, yeah, she said things that are definitely going to get her in trouble with her company, but there's a lot more to this story than what's going on its surface, and Niji Sanji has to handle this right, or they're going to have a massive PR crisis on their hands."
When are they not having a PR crisis? Just saying.
And right after her statements, no surprise that her agency account had all of its videos and content wiped, and also she was removed
Oof,
from their website
yeah.
list of talents as
Niji
well.
was
So
not
it comes
happy.
As no surprise today, about 5 days later after that, we finally get the announcement. And if you're familiar with these Niji Sanji graduation posts, you're probably a little underwhelmed by the lack of content here, and I'll explain all about that in a second. But let's read through
This
it.
was
Announcement
expected.
regarding Twisty Amanozako's contract termination. Niji Sanji has terminated its contract with Twisty Amanozako due to confirmed instances of discriminatory speech. Yeah, this standard is going to be very important for later in the video. But they say, which is a direct violation of our contract terms and is not tolerated in our community. We appreciate your
Oh, of
continued
course.
support as we
Because if you
grow
violate
together,
your
and we
contract, of
remain
course
committed
your
to
corpo's
fostering
gonna
a community
hit you
of
with a
blah, blah, blah,
ban
blah,
hammer.
blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what stands out to people who are familiar with these Niji Sanji termination/graduation announcements is the lack of a white screen. Typically, they have a white page with some documentation on there explaining the rule violations or a possible graduation stream, which is like a final stream to say goodbye to everyone, all that sort of stuff, more details, thanking the VTuber for their contributions. None of that here. They literally just kicked her out the door. The lack of, I guess, sincerity and transparency as well on this post is standing out to a lot of people, especially when you look at even some terminations of controversial VTubers from the agency, like, for example, Zion Lanza, who is now on her indie account, Sayu, and doing very well there. But when she was terminated after only 3 months, she was only there 3 months, and she got this whole long notice of every violation she did. It's a bulleted list of about a dozen or so.
I wish you would zoom in, because, okay, let's see if I can read this. Using copyrighted songs, revealing internal information, making statements that could lead to speculation of leaking internal information, offensive remarks, essay, discrimination, infringements of the rules, expressing, her will to perform streams using illegal games, comments that can be considered offensive, giving false information to other Niji livers, falsely claiming to have received permission from any color. Oof, ouch. Falsely claiming to be sponsored. What the? Likes to comments falling under defamation. Numerous other actions and comments. Of course, you had to put the etc., etc. at the end.
Different things that got her terminated, and it was written in a very inflammatory way to make her out to be some sort of a monster, right? Even say things like offensive remarks regarding discrimination and SA, which, by the way, was a joke she made about a character in a video game that she was streaming. And also they say things about
Which
copyright
video
violations
game?
where she literally just played a song from her GenMate that was recently released in an
Oh.
attempt to, I don't know, support it. But yeah, this was an example of way more transparency, even if it's misleading, than what we got with Twisty, who was with the company longer than her. And we also have the very infamous termination of Selene Totsky, who's also now on her former indie account, Dokibird, which is one of the biggest indies in the world right now. They gave a lot more effort to this. You know, this is the girl who was in such a negative environment for years, where she claims she attempted her own life twice as a result of the bullying that she suffered.
Attempting
at
to
the
game
company.
end?
And they at
Oof.
least gave 3 pages of explanation here. And of course, they lied a bunch of times because this is Niji Sanji. But you get what I'm saying. There's a format
Yeah.
they use for this stuff, and they didn't really do much of any of it for Twisty, which, given some of the things we're going to talk about today, it's a bit suspicious that they're spending so little time in this statement. Now, of course, I point out this confirmed instances of discriminatory speech, very poor choice of words on their behalf, because this standard could easily be used on other talents in the agency, and all of the Niji Sanji fans are like, this is not fair. You can't go back and retroactively apply this new standard or this existing one to
Telling people that they can't retroactively go back on stuff. Excuse me, you should go talk to YouTube. They love to go back for the entire life of anybody's channel. Doesn't matter what it is. They'll institute a new rule. They'll scrub through everything in your past. If they find anything that remotely causes a problem, you could wind up with violations and strikes like 6, 7, 8, 9, bam, 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 and you're dead. You know, it happens. It's been known to happen.
this talent who said stuff about a year ago. Yes, I can, and I will. This is Uki Violetta. If you're familiar with him, you know exactly where I'm going with this. He's a long-time Niji Sanji, Ian Liver, clearly one of the favorites there. Last year, he got in some trouble, and it all began with this interaction on Twitter, where someone said, what about straight white men? How do you feel about them? And he said, they're just as irresponsible and selfish as your response. Huh. That seems a bit discriminatory, doesn't it?
Give you a thumbs up,
dismissing an
bro.
entire, race as well as a sexuality because, or as irresponsible and selfish, that seems a bit discriminatory. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, is it just this one reply? No. This guy has a nearly 6-minute long compilation of him attacking white people and straight people. Like, it's a serious issue for this guy. And this came out over a year ago alongside that previous tweet, and nothing has ever happened. Let's just watch a small sample of what this guy's all about.
Oh boy.
I mean, no one does. I guess.
Person from each team. Join me over
White
here.
people.
He's sweet. Yeah, he is. Haha. Surprise, white man does the bare minimum. You know how when like white people kiss,
I don't. What do you fucking mean? What?
like in the movies and stuff, when white people kiss, it's like they look like they're in pain. You know what?
Oh, wow.
White people's hot dog sucks in more way than one.
Literally $0.
Wow.
Fucking.
Ooh.
It's because the hosts are two white
Okay.
people. It kind of looks
Oh,
bad.
ouch.
It kind of looks like it would match you if you were a pasty white person.
I'm
So
disappointed.
I'm gonna click out of that. You're just walking around, and then this old white couple passes by you, and they're like, "Hello," whatever, and I'm like, hello. Can I help you? We don't know each other. Why did you say hello? Why are you
Oh,
smiling at me?
Ugh. Now that's just disingenuous.
Why are you talking to me? What business do you have with me?
Huh. Seems like some discriminatory speech. In fact,
Yeah, and I'm not unadverse to actually running into that. Because, okay, I grew up in two worlds. Let's put it that way. That's the easier way to put it. Because, yeah, rather than put a label, I hate using labels. Other people in the world would put the BIPOC label on me, and I'm just going to roll my eyes. Look at it this way. I identify as Native American because it's where my family stems from. I was raised in two worlds. I was raised outside of the reservation in regular, normal American society half of my life, if we talk the back and forth, because my parents were divorced. And I was dealt with that divorce when I was 12. And leading up to that point, my mother was Native, my father was Irish German, for if we're going to go through descendancies and whatever. Yeah. My grandfather and great grandfather were apparently strict Irish, if you follow up the tree. But if I were to go with the Native American side, yeah, way, way, way back. I can actually trace that too far back to even before the country came to be. And yeah, I'm Sioux. My lineage actually hails from the middle of the country, nice, lovely flyover country. And the one thing growing up, people always talk about discriminatory language and discrimination and everything like that. Have you ever been discriminated from both sides? Like, if you were mixed, being discriminated against on either side, living in the regular world with, regular society, going to the malls, going off and having fun, going to the pool in summer, all of that, but you're too dark-skinned. So, of course, you get attacked. So you get to experience all of that, being a child and growing up. But then here's the problem. After the divorce happened, then all of a sudden I had to spend time not only in regular society with regular Americans, I also got to spend the other half of the time being on the reservation with other Native kids and other people of my tribe. And here's where the problem begins. I would go once a week to try to go to the local movie theater. Of course, the sucker was run down. Small town on the res. I was lucky enough that there was a theater nearby and there was barely anything to do. I mean, you'd ride your bike out in bare areas. I mean, a lot of people say that, yeah, reservations look pretty terrible, but yeah, sometimes it kind of looks like a war zone. Rusted out cars, a lot of things that just aren't well maintained, houses that look decrepit, you know, because there's hardly any money. And I would spend my allowance money going to the movie theater every week. On those trips to the movie theater growing up in the 90s, I would constantly be bullied by the other native children because I was too white. And that was a reciprocal cycle for me for until I was an adult. I was a very bitter child because I didn't fit in anywhere. It didn't matter. And if we wanted to have a discussion with regards to how do you make somebody who pops off and goes crazy and then next thing you know, it does something absolutely stupid, like we've seen in the news even recently, that's how. You push somebody up against the wall constantly and you degrade their self-worth and everything. I mean, I fell to a point where I even considered game ending myself, and that's a story for a different time. I'm still here because I turned that one around. And things are very different these days. But of course, let's get to where he's going with the rest of this. Let's see what's going on here.
It seems like it's actually on par with, or even greater than the things that Twisty said in a leaked private call. These are public comments on Twitter and in his streams. Twisties were in a private call. Not that it makes it a completely different, but I think it is a little different, right? She didn't expect that call to go out. He's just doing this brazenly in front of his audience. But of course, it doesn't really matter. He's a favorite at the company, and you can see the reactions to this back last year, where the fans were basically saying, white people are so prissy, and it's been a joy to see y'all lose your minds. Anyways, Stan Uki. Yeah, these are the terminally online freaks who have no issue with this. In fact, they think this is good. What he said, all these things, are actually great. That's why the hypocrisy is going to be pointed out, because they let this guy get away with it, and now they're using this language to take down Twisty. And I think it's very fair to say, where's the justice for this guy? Because he did the exact same thing on a very public
That is a very good question. Because if you're going to toss Twisty out, but you're going to leave him in, well,
or should I say something missing?
They should have just kept
she
Twisty
was not
on.
Fired for being a whistleblower, and that is important because about 6 months ago, False ID uploaded this video onto YouTube, where an English VTuber spoke out against another Niji Sanji English liver. And based on the context, it is very obvious that this was Twisty, and she was sharing her experience with Aster Arcadia, where she claims he's a known sex pest in the agency. This is what she's alleging, and that Niji Sanji is doing nothing to combat this. In fact, she says multiple women have been impacted by some of his actions. And as a result of that previous video and a follow-up video shortly after that, Niji Sanji felt the pressure, and they announced a third-party investigation into these issues. And this investigation focused on the issues of sexual harassment and, equally important to them, unauthorized information leakage to outside parties, violation of an NDA. Okay, this was announced over 6 months ago. Now we have this statement involving Twisty, who has been the most vocal about this entire set of allegations, and she's been fired not for being a whistleblower. This shows that this was a gift, in a sense, for Niji Sanji management. They were able to fire her without actually having to say she's a whistleblower or violating an NDA. They said no, instead,
basically
she said these
gave them an
discriminatory
out.
things. That's why she's fired. And now we're going to ignore these allegations in this investigation against Aster Arcadia. I think for them, they were handed a gift, and they're running with it. And unfortunately, again, as always, a lot of the Niji Sanji fans, they don't care. They don't care because they like him. And in this case, they're saying, oh, well, Twisty bad. She said edgy, controversial things. So we don't believe her. It's always believe all women until they say a couple edgy jokes on the internet. And then all of a sudden, forget her. We don't want to believe her anymore. And they really believe this investigation is a serious one when after 6 months, not even an update, no reference to it whatsoever at any point. Maybe it wouldn't be done at this point, but an update, anything?
Yeah,
This looks really
that would
bad.
be
It
that would
looks
be
like what they're doing
appreciated.
here is creating a standard for Twisty to fire her that they will not apply to their favorite talents. And on top of that, they're ducking the allegations that she made and hoping this is all just going to go away. This is a big mess. And where this all goes from here, I'm not quite sure. But anyways, that's going to do for this video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Definitely reposition some things here. That way we can get back to it and get you a Linku here. So that you can actually give him a like, comment, subscribe to him. Make sure things are actually working right. Which obviously they are not. Awesome. Scuff wins again. Okay. Let's see here. Go forward and take a look around things. Of course. See what's brand new going on here. All right, here we go. Figure we're gonna go after this one here. Decoy voice, decent enough guy, covering all the stuff that's going on with all of the protests that are going on. Very smart man.
To be controlled by rioters for years, but all that changed last night, as 5 days ago, protesters were tossing rocks into Portland's ICE facility.
Oh, that's
and even
peaceful.
Though the federal agents immediately backed off these rioters dressed in black bloc.
Yeah, come here.
Well,
it honestly looked like law enforcement was largely outnumbered.
Yeah, they're getting mad, big mad.
So well into the night, they still vandalized the property, as police reinforcements assisted them in taking back their driveway, clashing with protesters pushing plastic container lids.
What the? Plastic container lids. That, dude, if there's enough power on the pepper balls, it's just gonna break right through it.
With one social media caption stating, this was DHS's fault for escalating.
Well, there's always going to be arguments on the viewpoints, either side on this one.
And even though they were able to get some vehicles out of their driveway,
He's got his shield upside down.
it appeared they still lost ground with the protesters.
Yep.
As days later,
Strategic
these activists
retreat,
still
of
surrounded
course.
the building. These Portland protesters are deranged with what they think they should get away with, setting up shop, blocking a federal building while throwing rocks at their agents, then acting shocked when they come out and arrest some of them. But it shouldn't be too surprising, as places like Portland have simply allowed unemployed behavior to plague their cities whenever the Democrats don't get their way. But they're about to learn real quick. Their local liberal DAs might be lenient when they misbehave, but they can't be saved when the charges are federal. As yesterday,
Yeah, bit
Jonathan
of a
Cho
thing.
from Cho Show, recording for Frontlines, which is Turning Point USA, documented the day's protest.
Now, this is where I got to ask if he managed to pull that off. I mean, Turning Point USA, well, they're of course looked at by the protesters as somebody that if they discover they're actually in there, they're risking themselves physically. And that's not fun.
Where they again attempted to block the entrance to the ICE facility.
There are even live streamers who've been attacked just for being inside these.
And as the feds watched the crowds grow outside, they surprisingly stayed well into the evening.
Well, that's nice.
So when the ICE agents eventually needed to exit, the crowd was again easily dispersed.
Of course, they're gonna move the line back. Yep. Move that old line back.
Proving to the protesters at any given time they can be made to go away. As their shipping container shields do nothing.
Well, yeah, they're not exactly high tensile strength. It's not really going to provide much cover. Of course, got to throw that can
So
back
they
at
let
them.
the Fed vehicles out, with a few of the protesters being arrested.
Apprehended. Somebody here.
Oh boy.
All people.
That'll happen. I remember the Dapple protests. Those were fun.
As basically just a skeleton crew was willing to stick around after.
Oh, of course. A lot of people went home because, well, what time was this probably
With the
filmed? 3 in
Department
the
of
morning?
Homeland Security putting out a statement saying 250 rioters launched fireworks and shined lasers in officers' eyes, as 5 were arrested on various charges, including assaults on federal officers. There has been a 413% increase in attacks,
Oof.
but this will not deter them, and if you lay a hand on law enforcement, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Which is great, as a local ABC affiliate stated. One teenager allegedly punched a federal officer in the head, where he now faces 20 years in federal prison. And as harsh as
Yeah,
it sounds,
that's not
I
gonna
hope he
be
gets
fun.
the full 20, as last week and maybe even the last 5 years has only shown the protesters that they can essentially get away with anything as long as they all wear the same masks and only riot on behalf of Democrat talking points. Then it went from marching in the streets to light vandalism to lighting cars on fire, looting local businesses.
The one thing to definitely remember about the whole sentencing somebody up to 20, if all of a sudden he gets given the full 20, depends. Sometimes in the court system in the United States, there's parole settings, parole hearings, and with 20 years, it's possible he could be out in 7, 8 years, maybe. I mean, you can correct me in comments or chat or anything. I mean, I'm just stabbing a guess here, but all of a sudden when you get eligible for parole, it's not a guarantee. You still have to actually go through a whole bunch of other process to try to get out. And then all of a sudden you're going to have to deal with probation and whatever and keep your nose clean and not so much as a parking ticket.
Until it became hitting feds over the head. At some point in time, the pendulum had to swing back towards law and order, and nothing does that faster than dishing out long prison sentences. And it's not like they're just pinning it on someone innocent, because if this guy was willing to hit law enforcement, I imagine they'd be willing to do something much worse to someone not armored and armed. And all for what? So these activists can stop ICE from arresting wanted criminals already convicted of child R when local idiots alerted him of the feds so he could escape? But will incidents like this change the rioters' minds in disrupting these arrests? Absolutely not, because these types don't act on actual information, but the emotional manipulation fed by their liberal handlers. As over in LA, they're still protesting in the streets, there's zero actual change and zero jail time.
150 demonstrators were seen marching.
Now, honestly, with Decoy Voice, I hope he actually stays safe, because he's a LA native.
Climbing light poles, holding flags, setting off fireworks, and, as you can tell, obviously doing donuts. The protest lasted for about 6 hours until police ordered the crowd to disperse about midnight. No arrests were made, no injuries reported.
With another protest outside Dodger Stadium, angry that allegedly ICE agents entered their parking lot.
Anti-ICE protest erupting.
Yeah, I saw the news articles pinging on my phone about this. It's like, okay, they were doing that. Okay, it was? No, it wasn't. Oh, it was. No, it wasn't. And then it finally comes out with this.
Outside Dodger Stadium. Crowds holding signs and chanting.
The Dodgers! We're asking the Dodgers to come out here now. It's too late for talking. We need them to come out here, get ICE up out of here.
When ICE was never even in that area, as these idiots got all worked up over nothing. Because of course law enforcement stages in the area. The stadium is on Academy Road. There's a police facility across the street, but that's an entirely different story that we gotta do a deep dive into next, as LA is about to get a whole lot worse, so make sure you subscribe for that. Don't doom scroll on social media all day when
No, I would definitely agree. Definitely got to keep an eye on that space. Because if he's going to come forward and actually do the deep dive into, you know, that police facility that's there, he said it's a police facility. It could be the county sheriff of the area. It could be other law enforcement. And of course, most average people, you see a law enforcement vehicle, you can actually get kind of duped about it and not realize, because all law enforcement vehicles tend to look alike. So that is what that is, because a lot of confusion can always happen. But of course, in regards to how things have been going for my night, I unfortunately have my own medical issues and everything that I have to tend to, and I'm going to have to take care of those. So I unfortunately am going to have to end this for tonight. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer. Definitely got to take care of myself and my health. I'm not exactly the youngest person in the world. As it says, I'm an old man. This is how it goes. So, of course, definitely thank everybody for actually hanging out with me tonight. Definitely nice to actually see everybody. And definitely check out, see who we can actually see into for those on Twitch to actually raid off to. And I think we'll deal with Twitchy Buggy. Decent lady. Looks like she's kind of on a break at the moment, but she's actually seeing about playing Star Citizen over on Twitch. So you guys will be able to actually check that out. And let's see here. There we go. And it was definitely great actually having you guys here. It was awesome. Thanks for coming, and hopefully everybody has a wonderful night.